Good morning, everyone. We have a few more folks signing up, but I think we can get started now. My name is Susan George, and I'm the Events Director at the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us this morning. Most of you already know the drill, but just so you know, once again, the presentation is going to be live, but you're going to be on mute and off camera. So we encourage you to submit your questions in the chat option, and it'll be addressed at the end. A huge shout out to our webinar sponsor, Sunnking. Thanks to their support, we're able to maintain our commitment to serving our members and bringing them valuable information at no additional cost. So we really appreciate their support. Sunking's mission is to provide superior asset management and recovery services to business and government organizations by using proven reuse and recycling techniques that maximize asset value, promote environmental sustainability, and meet the data sanitation requirements of our clients. Thank you, Sunnking. We really appreciate it. Now, before I introduce our presenter this morning, I would like to inform you of some upcoming events we have scheduled, and we really hope you can join us. On October 27th, we will continue our conversation on inclusive culture through our new diversity, equity, and inclusion programming called Colors of Success. We have another topic on that, which is called the business case, and that is set for November 17th. We will also be launching our new DEI training program for our members with special discounts. We're going to host this in person at the Strong. The 3 dates, the 3 sessions that anybody can choose from is October 30th, November 20th, and December 11th from 8 to 4. We will be providing lunch as well. The reason we want to do this in person is because it's going to be interactive with tangible takeaways, and we'll ensure that everybody is socially distant and you're safe. So you don't have to worry about that, but it is going to be in person. Registration is open if you'd like to check that out. November 10th, we will be bringing you 3 small business executives on a panel for an interactive session. This particular webinar, typically these are in person, but we continue to do these virtual. It's called Chamber Business Rounds, and it's designed to be interactive conversations. So your cameras will be on, your mics will be off. You can actually ask the questions in the chat, and it'll be moderated. So the topic of focus is small business. So we hope you can join us. We will also be partnering with our affiliate, the Small Business Council, to bring to you the 2020 Thanksgiving Drive that provides food for families in need in November. Details on all of these events, as well as our remaining events for the year, can be found on greaterrochesterchamber.com. Now, please allow me to introduce our presenter this morning, Adam Shine. Adam Shine is Vice President of Sunnking Electronics Recycling. He's worked in the recycling industry for over 10 years, helping grow Sunking's technology brand to twice its size since joining. Adam also serves as Director of Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries Electronic Commodity Division and serves on the advisory board for Camp, Good Days, and Special Times. Please welcome our speaker this morning, Adam Shine.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me. Just want to confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Happy to have everybody here, and hope everybody's doing okay on this rainy day after less than stellar Bills performance. But nonetheless, today we're going to focus on why your business tech is losing you money and how you can fix it. So looking forward to a lively discussion. Please, I encourage everybody to ask questions as we go throughout. I think we're going to hold them till the end, but if you see something, please feel free to use the chat box to type in a question. All right, let's get started. So the question is today, right, is my business tech losing money? And the answer is yes, I'm sure it is. And you might ask the question, why? Why is your business tech losing money? And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's likely because you're overdoing it, overpaying for it, or overthinking it. So we're going to focus our presentation today on a couple different topics, really focused on small, medium, and large business and also on the resale of electronics as well. So we have a poll here, and hopefully we can put this up. What size is your business? If you are a small business, please select small business, which is 1 to 99 employees, medium business 100 to 499, or large business 500 plus. If you would go ahead and take the poll, I'd appreciate it. We will pause to see what the answers are. While we're waiting, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between small, medium, and large business, and how specifically they're losing out perhaps on their business tech. And then we're going to go into some ways to help try to maximize and almost use tech as a cost center as opposed to, or a revenue source instead of a cost center. All right, it looks like we have wrapped up. Do we have the results? All right, there we go. 94% of the people on the call are from small businesses. So that's interesting. No medium business size, no 100 to 499 employees, but 6%, 500 plus. That's great. Good information. So we're going to focus a little bit on the various areas and talk a little bit more about small, medium, and large business and how they can take advantage of their business tech. So if we could, let's go ahead. So if you're a small business, how are you losing money? That's the question, and that's one of the things we're going to look at right now. So when we talk about small business, the way that you can save money is by buying like new tech versus new tech. So we typically have reps that go out and call on businesses of all sizes, small, medium, and large. And we will send our commercial account reps in to take a look at the technology that you have that might be, at the end of its useful life. And we will have our salespeople come in, they'll take a look at what you have, perhaps they'll provide you with an offer, or sometimes it can even be a cost to remove that technology. It depends on what you have, what the quantity is. But from a small business perspective, typically the number of units that you have may not warrant a payday on the electronics. So one of the ways that the small business can take advantage is by utilizing refurbished and like new equipment as opposed to new equipment. So when you go out, you have a new employee starting, rather than buying a $1,000 laptop, you should look at opportunities to buy refurbished units. And I think, as we'll talk about, one of the things that has become increasingly evident throughout COVID is that a lot of people are utilizing refurbished units or like new units instead of new, because the market was flooded with gear. So by using like new, you're paying a portion of the price. I would estimate probably 33%, a third of the price of new, but you're still hopefully getting the same level of service and warranties with that equipment, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we move on. All right, so small business overlooking refurbished units, kind of like I just touched on. Refurbished units can be just as good as new units, and again, 33% of the cost. So a lot of times, large and medium and large size companies, they want to buy new units that come with a full 3-year or 4-year warranty. Small businesses, on the other hand, and I can tell you that Sunnking is the perfect example of this. We don't ever purchase computers. Everything that we utilize, from our laptops to our desktops to camera systems that we have, we always look at refurbished material, typically that comes in through our stream of recyclables. But also, if we have to go out and buy something, we will always go out and buy refurbished instead of new, whether it's equipment or electronics. So refurbished units can work just as well. Again, a fraction of the cost. And I think because we're in the recycling business in particular, we always use refurbed over new. So I would really recommend that small business always focus on buying refurbished units versus new units because it's a portion of the cost. You can still get a warranty. We're looking at product lease programs for refurbished units where you use them for a period of time and then you can upgrade after a period of time. We've also done conversions. So sometimes businesses, they might not, especially small businesses, they might not want to be done with an asset, but perhaps some of the specs on the desktop or laptop need to be upgraded. Maybe you need more RAM. Maybe you need a bigger hard drive. That's another thing that small businesses can do as opposed to going out and buying new units. Another thing that Sunnking offers is we take units in and we can upgrade them. So rather than paying for a brand new unit, we can put more RAM in it, we can put a bigger hard drive in it, and ultimately make it like new again. And of course, the important thing is to make sure that you're buying from a company like New Units that are warranted, or making sure that the company is going to stand behind the quality of their products. All right, so next we'll talk about medium businesses. How are they losing money on their tech? So that's one of the areas that I want to focus more on, that I alluded to earlier, which is we have commercial account reps that go in to various size companies and they will take a look at what you have. So if you're doing a change out of 50 computers and 50 monitors, for instance, that's something where there can be value for those units. We will pull the assets out, meaning we'll come in, we'll package them up in a white glove type fashion. We will pull them back to our facility. We can serialize the units. We can obviously provide hard drive destruction. And then what we will do is we will repurpose and resell those units. So we can give you value for those units. They might not have any value for you anymore, but perhaps for the next guy, they do have value, or for a small business as an example. So oftentimes we can do one of two options. One would be to pay for your assets outright, where we give you something. The second would be on a consignment type basis, where as we sell them, we would split any revenue associated with the resale of those units. So again, it's really a volume number at that time. It's all about the volume and also about the type of equipment that you have. If it's a Core 2 Duo computer as an example, which those have been pretty much used and are 8 to 10 years old now, not a lot of value there. But if it's an i3, i5, i7 series, if it's a server rack, if it's a network array storage device, there can be value for those types of items. So that's one of the things a business should look at is, hey, can I recoup any value for the expense that I made? Cord circuit boards possess hidden profits. So again, one of the things that I want to talk about here is that people think of electronics recycling as just computers, laptops, printers, peripherals, which would be keyboards, mice. The reality is that we do a lot more than that. So traditionally, we find our way to people through the traditional electronic stream. However, we're handling anything from camcorders to vacuum cleaners to wireless microphones and earbuds and industrial controls and medical equipment. Anything really that is electronic, which frankly is everything nowadays. I mean, we have one account, I will say, that we get light up shoes. Why do we get light up shoes? Because they're considered electronics. They've got a circuit board in them and they've got batteries in them that need to be handled appropriately. So don't just think about working with your electronics recycler for the traditional stuff, the computers and other things. You could have, perhaps you're a medium-sized business that has food service and you have an industrial size fridge. That's something that we can handle. Perhaps you have your dentist office and you're upgrading your dental chairs. That's something that we can handle. Perhaps you're an office and you're moving and you're closing one office down and you're reopening a new location. We can take your old furniture out. We can take out all of your old technology. We can get all the cords and the wires and the servers and everything from the old facility out. So it's not just your traditional electronics, it's many other things, and you should always be looking for, and frankly, if you have a good partner in recycling, they should be prompting you for these things as well. If they're not, it's something that you should always think about on your end. Is there value here? That's not to say there's value for everything, but ultimately, you should be considering trying to recoup value where and when possible. So next, how are large businesses losing money? So we're going to identify this. It's really similar, frankly, to what we're talking about for medium businesses, which is you're paying IT staff for repetitive services, both critical and on-site. And if you have a computer, as is often the case with large business, that's outside of the warranty period typically being 36 or 48 months, rather than continue to service that, oftentimes large businesses will then buy new computers. And when they buy those new computers, that computer that they're replacing is only 3 or 4 years old. And I know in technology terms, if you're talking about a smartphone, 3 or 4 years seems like a long time, but on a computer desktop, it's really not. There's not a tremendous amount of new bells and whistles on desktop. So while large companies often want to make sure that they stay within that warranty period, and that's good and probably a wise decision. So, if you're talking 500 plus employees, you have to scale up on IT managers to service those employees. Whereas if you're buying new equipment, oftentimes it's easier. You just call the service provider, whether it's Dell or HP, and they'll come in and service those units for you. But again, after the warranty period, you're swapping those out. It's a 3 or 4 year old machine. And while it doesn't have value to you anymore, it does in fact have value. And what a great thing to be able to recoup the expense or a portion of the expense that you paid for those assets up front. So again, that's where we would come in and we would take those units out. We would repurpose them by putting new hard drives in them, imaging them with a new copy of Windows, and then ultimately selling them and sharing in the revenue. The other thing is, as I alluded to before, internal specs updates. So if you have a laptop that's got 4 gigabytes of RAM and really you find that you have some process that you're running that really is eating up the memory, and you want to upgrade your whole accounting department with 8 gigs of RAM, that's something that we can do and have done for the likes of large businesses and really medium-sized companies as well. So rather than having to buy those new units all the time, you can upgrade your units and try to get some more useful life out of them as well. That is an option also. Missing out on sales revenue sharing. So as I said, there's 2 ways really that we can provide value back. And this really goes for any business that might have saleable assets. We find that typically medium and large size businesses have the type of quantity, but again, it depends on the equipment. Oftentimes there is equipment that we find at small businesses that can absolutely have resale value still. So one of the ways to capture revenue if you're a business that has assets that are saleable is revenue share, where we take it in. We will, like I said, prep the unit for sale, which means wipe the hard drive, put a new hard drive in, put a Windows image on it, perhaps upgrade the specifications. So if it came in with 4 gigs of RAM, we put 8 gigs of RAM in, and then ultimately resell that and share back in the revenue. The other option is that we buy stuff outright. Some people would prefer to get money now as opposed to later. The problem with that model is that we're going to be ultra conservative because we don't necessarily know what it's going to sell for. Every unit's a little bit different. There's a lot of variation that we see, again, outside of just computers and laptops. So it takes some research, and ultimately we have some product experts that know what value can be, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get that. So revenue share is typically the best way and provides the best return for your equipment, but there can be outright purchases as well. So how do I recoup value for my old devices? We're going to talk a little bit about that and delve more into that subject. So talking a little bit about IT asset disposition, that's what ITAD is. It's a known term in our industry that talks about managing assets. So there's a couple things that we do as part of this process. Traditionally, we will come send a rep to your site to inspect the equipment. If at the very least with COVID right now, a lot of people aren't having visitors to their site, so at least we minimally need pictures to really understand if there might be value for some of your assets. But ITAD in particular is traditionally where we go into a company, we inspect their assets, we can verify the equipment, and then ultimately refurbish it, put new specs into the unit and sell it and pay. But it goes beyond that too. So oftentimes medium to large size companies, they require special services like hard drive destruction, like serialization, where they might have an audit department within their own organization, and they want to track, or they have a corporate mandate to track all of their equipment and its final disposition. So oftentimes we will go into a site, we will take a look at all the equipment they have, we can serialize it on site, we can then package it up, move it back to our facility, we can then serialize it back at our facility to confirm that nothing went missing from the time we picked it up to the time it came back. And typically there's a charge for that service, of course, but then ultimately we can provide hard drive destruction as well. And one other thing that we're actually doing now is we're not only providing hard drive destruction, but we're serializing the hard drive and serializing the computer that it came out of. So we can really get down into the weeds as far as the data that you need and what we need to collect. And then ultimately we can provide all those services. Traditionally, like I said, some of those services would be at a cost, and then ultimately we can sell the equipment through our resale channels. Our resale channels really are one of three. We do have a retail store here in Brockport, New York, that we sell out of. It's a good place to get refurbished tech at a reasonable price. We also sell online through eBay, Amazon, Newegg. And finally, we sell wholesale to other partners throughout the industry that ultimately have good end markets for some of the equipment. So, kind of the theme here is one person's junk becomes another man's treasure, and another man or woman, I guess, is the appropriate way. So ultimately, even though companies are getting rid of tech or turning it over, there is still life left in tech. I can tell you that 8, 10, 12-year-old equipment can still have value, even older stuff. We're finding, interestingly enough, that vintage material is starting to have value again. What is vintage material? Let's say we get an Atari in, which is not unusual. Ataris can have value. We one time got an ergonomic keyboard in. It was the world's first ergonomic keyboard. I don't remember who made it offhand, but if memory serves, we ended up selling that for a couple $1,000. And it was something that just one of our product sales guys, or our product knowledge guys, product specialists, ended up seeing and thought that there could be value, and he looked it up, and we ended up doing pretty well on that. But it's that's obviously rare, needle in the haystack type stuff. But ultimately, we get a lot of different stuff in, and try to find value in everything we can, from the traditional electronics to the non-traditional stuff. And ultimately, the majority of our resale stuff comes from businesses that we work with, and you could see a steady increase in our B2B pounds of material recycled. So our business is really fragmented into two sections. We handle business to consumer through the New York State Electronics Recycling Act, and then we also handle business volume directly. And business volume is where the majority of our material is available for resale. So we're combing that material always to look for value. and in some cases we find value, and in other cases we don't, of course. But you could see that as our pounds of electronics that are recycled through business increases, the option to resell hopefully will increase as well. You know, another thing that we've noticed too is there's been a really hot resale market due to COVID-19. So right now is a good time for companies to look for value for some of those assets, because I could tell you in particular, Chromebooks have been a big item to sell of late, because schools need Chromebooks for their students. So many of the students are working out of their house or having remote learning, and they need Chromebooks. So we've had a huge opportunity to resell Chromebooks. Traditionally, businesses don't like Chromebooks or don't utilize Chromebooks as much, but we get them from other school systems, and Chromebooks have been a huge one. Also laptops. If you can't get a Chromebook, laptop's the next best thing. So we've had a lot of a large increase in sales with regard to Chromebooks and laptops. As you can see here, a little blurb from Rob Burns, who's our director of marketing. We're working with businesses every day to recycle their retired tech, but now we're seeing everybody's home has become an office. So the number of devices people are ready to recycle has skyrocketed. So yeah, it's right now what we've seen is that people are holding on to devices a little bit longer, only because so many people are working remote. And then you also had a bunch of people clamoring for those devices because they couldn't get them. So the resale market was really, really hot. Right now, things I think have leveled off a little bit. People are sort of used to working out of their house and working with the tech that they have. You could see a $160,000 increase in product sales from April to August versus the same time period last year. So sales have definitely spiked. I think products being recycled has leveled off right now, because a lot of businesses are working remote, and those that have come back are focused on, you know, how to reinvent themselves given the pandemic that we're facing. But ultimately, when we get through this, I believe that there's going to be a flood in the market of electronics to be recycled, because I think companies have held on to units longer. I believe that their people working remotely have units that will enter the recycling stream. And I think, you know, a lot of people are going to upgrade when they come through this. So I certainly expect to see the volumes increase substantially. So here's another question. When is the right time to spend on a new system or invest in an update to your current setup? And the answer is it depends. It really depends on how critical your infrastructure is. So, you know, when we talk about Sunnking utilizing refurbished units, ultimately those units, they come in, they get repurposed, we upgrade the RAM, we put a new operating system on them, and then we put them in place for our employees. But we don't do that in one particular area, and that's with our servers. We have servers where we actually need to make sure that those are going to last. We don't like to make changes to the architecture of our network that often. So the servers we actually do buy new and try to utilize as long as we can without pushing it too hard, because if you have a breakdown in your critical infrastructure, it becomes an issue. But as far as those devices connecting to that infrastructure, refurbished is good. So in the example here, cloud technology, which is a growing trend, using Office 365 and different things, you can have Office 365. You can ultimately utilize cloud-based technology, and sometimes you can utilize cloud-based technology on your own equipment or on the equipment of others. If you're using it on your own equipment, I would certainly consider that you utilize new or like new technology for that. But the devices connecting to it, the desktops, the laptops, printers, certainly I would suggest that everybody look at like new versus new. You pay about a third of the price. And again, if you're working with a company that ultimately stands by and warranties their products, you'll be in good shape. So we got another poll here. Has your perception of refurbished technology changed since COVID-19? The responses are yes, I'm open to them. No, too many questions, and not really, I always buy new. So if you could take a quick poll here. All right, and when everybody's done, we'll get the results of that poll. So again, yes, I'm open to refurbished technology. No, too many questions, or not really, I always buy new. Yes, I'm open to them. Not really, I always buy new. So we're pretty mixed. And then 14% said too many questions. I think by that they either mean we've asked too many questions as part of this presentation, or there's too many questions on they don't feel comfortable on the quality perhaps. But I would say that it's likely that the 43% that said I'm open to buying used technology, I bet you if we had done this prior to COVID, that number would have been about half, if not less. What I've found is that ultimately people are feeling much more comfortable about buying refurbished tech. And that's because, frankly, in some cases, it's been forced upon them where they might not have in the past considered it or had an option to use refurbished. You know, I'm thinking about companies, for example. If your company had to set up the ability for you to work from home and they couldn't get a new unit because the manufacturers were far behind and they had to provide a refurbished unit, well, maybe that's your first opportunity to work with a refurbished unit. Maybe it's working just fine, and that's changed your idea of technology. Also, I would say too, with technology emerging and changing so often, again, I talk desktops don't change too much, laptops, phones obviously more, but if you're somebody who likes new technology or newer technology, get a computer that's 2-3 years old, and instead of holding it for 10 years, you're paying a third of the price, hold it for 3 years and then upgrade to something else that's refurbished at that point. So you can update your technology more often by buying used as opposed to new. Ultimately, when you look at it, so we've talked really about both sides of it. So product incoming to us and how we handle that process through ITAD and through coming out and looking for value for your electronics. And then we've also talked about the resale side of things and how we prepare stuff to ultimately sell it through one of our channels. So you can really have both ends of it. We're not only bringing the material in, we're repurposing it, reselling it. We can handle both ends of the transaction. So it's important to ask yourself about what company to hire and some things to look for. So we're going to talk about that. Certifications. There are two main certifications when it comes to electronics recycling. One is R2 Rios, the other is E-Stewards. You want to make sure that you are working with an electronics recycler that is certified to either R2 or E-Stewards. Why do you want to do that? Because they ultimately are held to a standard. The standard talks about data privacy. The standard talks about reselling and rules around reselling. For instance, you can't resell to non-developed countries. So ultimately, they make sure that the recycler is doing the right thing. And again, R2 and E-Stewards are the two main certifications. You also want to look for other recyclers that are involved in other industry groups as well, like ISRI. ISRI is the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. It oversees the entire recycling space from paper to plastic to metals to tires to rubber to electronics. Great organization, and ultimately any recycler really, if they're good, would be investing in groups such as ISRI. Then you have NYSAR, which is New York State Association for Reduction, Reuse, and Recycling. Again, if a company's not getting involved in extracurriculars, that means they're not reinvesting in themselves. And then ultimately SWANA as well, which is Solid Waste Organization. And again, I would say that you want to look for somebody who's not only certified, but also involved in other extracurriculars as well. And ultimately, Sunnking is all of those things, of course. But again, if you don't use us, the important thing for me is making sure you deal with somebody certified, because if you're recycling units and the data is not being handled the proper way, and you're in healthcare or banking, or let's say you're a counselor, as an example, and you have customer or patient data on there, you want to make sure that that's not going to get into the wrong hands. So let's recap some of the things that we talked about today. One, new is not always your best option. Again, if you're a small business and you're ultimately wanting to save expense, look at refurbished units. It's a great way to ultimately do everything that you need to do. These are good working condition units. They can have the latest specs, and ultimately you're paying a third of the price. Two, revenue sharing. Put your tech to work. If you believe that you have electronics that have resale value, not everything does, but of course it's something that we can come in and take a look at. So if you think you have units, and again, let's think outside of the box. We're not just talking laptops and desktops. We could be talking a microphone. We get DJ boards in all the time. We get cameras in. You name it, we get it in. Ultimately, take a look at something. If you think there's value for it, certainly contact us, and we're happy to take a look and let you know if there is. And even if there isn't, or even if we don't know, we'll try it out and see. That's one way to look at it. Three, find hidden profits. So devices with circuit boards or cords have value. As I just talked about, it's much more than just your electronics. It's everything from a microphone that plugs in that I'm talking on today, to a laptop, to a printer. It could be industrial fridge. It could be electric charging stations. There's just a tremendous number of devices out there. And one of the things that I often get asked about and talked about is the Internet of Things and how that's going to change and revolutionize electronics recycling. What we do today is going to be vastly different in 10 years. You are going to have cars that have data on them. Everything is becoming an electronics item now for recycling. Solar panels. I just saw an article recently about a light bulb that has data contained on it. So you name it, it's electronic. Not everything has value, of course. I don't want to send the wrong message, but many things do. So find hidden profits in some of those electronics that you have in your facility. And finally, choose partners wisely. You want to make sure you're working with a legitimate company that'll warranty their work, that will provide certifications, that reinvest in themselves as an organization. If they're not taking the time to invest in certifications or other industry groups, then you probably would want to find somebody else to work with. And now it's your turn. I'll be happy to turn it over for any questions. I think Rob Burns from my team, who's on this call, is going to moderate the questions. So shoot.
Yeah, great information, Adam. We really appreciate you again taking some time here today, and everybody sticking with us. We had a couple dozen people stay on the webinar throughout, and hopefully you got some good tangible information out of all this. So now, with the last couple of minutes, 10 minutes or so, we're going to open it up to you guys out there. Any questions, send them on in the chat box on there, and we will be able to answer them. If not now, individually, we'll get to everybody. We will make time for you. That's what this is all about. You spent your time on us. So we'll be able to answer everything for you. First question coming in here, Adam, is we're a small nonprofit and have about 3 to 6 older systems that could be upgraded and resold. I mean, that's not a timeline that's outside of anything that you just talked about. Is that volume doable? And I think they're probably, looking at, is that something that we can look at being upgraded and resold either through consignment or through the resale channels that you talked about?
Sure. Well, obviously every case is different, and I will say that, thanks for the question. I will say that literally every situation that we walk into is different. There is no cookie cutter approach to this. So yes, there could be value potentially. 3 to 6 units is not a lot. If there is no resale value, there's probably not anything in the way of recycling. However, one of the things that the question sort of touched on was, can those units be upgraded and resold? Well, instead of reselling them, what if we were to upgrade them and give them new life for this not-for-profit organization? That's something that you can and should take a look at, unless there's a compelling need to get new equipment. Or perhaps what we do is we could sell refurbished gear and take a credit off for the units that they're turning in. So give them a discount off of the purchase of more modern refurbed units.
Yeah, the good thing I think is that there's options out there. There's also, donation if it's something that they want to, if there's a company out there that kind of wants to just help out in that respect. And that leads me actually into the next question that we had. This was submitted before the webinar, so this is a pre-question here, and it was, is there a good way to find and donate old desktop computers or any other peripherals to other organizations that will be able to utilize them? So perhaps there's another nonprofit out there that you know has a need. What's the best way? A lot of people out there are probably worrying about their own personal day-to-day business and don't have the necessarily time or resources to go out and figure that out.
Yeah, well, I would point to two opportunities. One is certainly we have this program that Sunnking does every year called eScrap for Camp. It's near and dear to my heart. I'm on the advisory board for Camp Good Days, which actually happened after we started doing this program that they asked me to be on the advisory board. But ultimately, we sign up companies. They bring in, we provide them with boxes. Their employees bring stuff in from home, fill these boxes. They can also put their company stuff in there. We bring them away, and we are donating cents per pound to Camp Good Days for every pound that we receive. So it's something that we do in Rochester, in Buffalo, and we're doing a version of in Utica this year. So that's always a good opportunity. We do that 1 month out of the year in the various cities, and we've raised over $100,000 for Camp Good Days through that program, which certainly is great. For those of you that don't know, Camp Good Days is an organization for kids with cancer. So they provide summer camp and year-round activities. So it's a great cause. There are other organizations out there that I know of for sure. One in Buffalo called Computers for Children. We have no affiliation with them whatsoever. The only thing I would caution on that is it's obviously a great noble cause. They are getting computers for kids that are probably disadvantaged in terms of social and economic circumstances. So it's a great organization, and we have done some work with them in the past. But the only thing I would caution there is the data security piece. I don't know, and I'm not saying they don't have the means to wipe data, but I don't know, and that's something that you would definitely want to check on before just turning units over to them.
And sometimes there's that indirect donation that would be good to kind of touch on. Is I know on our standpoint here at Sunnking, when we get refurbished or recycled units in rather, and it comes to light that there's a need for those units. Say there's a nonprofit, say there's a building fire and there's some kids that need computers to do homeschooling. You want to make sure, again, you're working with a company that has a history or a track record maybe of knowing those causes and saying, yeah, we have some means here and it might be the right time, or we have the ability to donate as well. So by recycling or by reselling those devices, you may indirectly be donating to those good causes as well, unless there's something specific I think that you're looking for.
No, and that's a good point. If I could touch on that, we have of course done those things before. The Boys and Girls Club in Buffalo, I remember we provided some technology to. We've done many different community type events where we've donated a laptop or donated TV and various things. So we are very much community oriented, and yeah, to your point, Rob, you never know when Sunnking is handling your units ultimately if those don't get donated. So that's another point. Work with the community related partners, somebody that you feel is gonna ultimately do the right thing and help the community out with various programs. That doesn't mean they're doing community related stuff at all times, but certainly when people call and there's a need, we certainly will stand up and help.
Okay, so of course we are talking about donations. It's a great cause. It makes everyone feel good, but there are also some times where we have companies that have donated. Maybe they've even taken a chance to participate in our e-scrap for camp. But now in this webinar, we've said, well, there's a way to make money too, and maybe help you out individually. So I think there's a couple of questions and clarification there that people are looking for. And in terms of that is, you know, yeah, I donate to e-scrap for camp and it's great, but are there other ways and is there a possibility of getting those devices purchased or doing the resale instead of just handing them over? So there's options again, and that's the good thing, there's options, but you know, maybe there's that benefit that it just takes a minute to ask the question. I think that's all people have to do, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, a couple things I would say. E-scrap for camp is more focused on not the company's equipment necessarily, though, as I alluded to, you can put your equipment in the boxes we provide, but it's more so for the employees themselves bringing stuff in from home. Traditionally, what we see is residential volume is not right for resale. That's not always the case, but traditionally. So in my case, I will use a laptop for, you know, 8 to 10 years perhaps, and then it'll die, no longer work. And then I'll stick it in my basement and it'll sit there for another 8 to 10 years until my wife eventually tells me, hey, get this out of the house. So now I'm handing over a 15 to 20-year-old computer to Sunnking. Why have I held on to it? Well, really because never knew if I was going to need it. Never knew if somehow I was going to try to get all the pictures off the hard drive that had died. Ultimately, I decide that after 10 years, if I haven't got the pictures off of it, I probably don't need those pictures anymore. So that's when I'll recycle it and donate it. If you are an individual and you do have equipment and you do think there's value there, we do have other means. There are companies out there that will buy your used tech, and we actually have one that we've spun off called Sell Your Tech. If you go to sellyourtech.com, you can ultimately take pictures and put device specifications in there, and we will buy those units from you if they do in fact have resale value. Again, I would say from the residential stream, it depends. It's oftentimes not of the vintage that has resale value, but you never know. So it's always worth a try. And worst case scenario, and there's no resale value, we will ultimately recycle it for you at no cost.
All right, and so one other question that we have coming in here right now is something I can easily answer for you because it's actually my next slide. They're thinking ahead, and it's how do I arrange a call to get some information on asset review for either donation or resale? Well, right there, everybody. There's your answer. You can email any of those questions to info@sunnking.com. One of us will be able to look at it. We have a small dedicated team that answers those questions, or at least make sure they go to the right person. If we can help you, great. If we know of a better avenue that can help you, great. You know, we're there as well. There's our main number and our website link, which you can chat with somebody to get those answers. So I think there's some questions though, Adam, maybe you can answer before you get to that asset review point. You know, there's some preparation on your end, on the business owner end, to make that way you're ready for that phone call and those expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly, you know, one of the things that we're going to ask you is what do you have? So have an idea of what you have. It doesn't mean you need the model numbers of everything to start, but you know, I have a conveyor that my company, we're a manufacturing facility. We have an old conveyor. Okay, great. We have you know, these 10 laptops. Okay, great. Give us an idea. Are they I-Series? Are they Core 2 Duo? Again, we don't need specific model numbers to start, but what do you have? Also, pictures. Pictures tell 1,000 stories. So have pictures available of the equipment. Depending on the size of the job or opportunity, we may come in if you're allowing visitors, of course. If not, we've done Zoom calls where we can see the equipment, or again, pictures work oftentimes. So we will take a look at what you have and decide or determine if we believe there's value. If there's not value, we will still again arrange to recycle for free. And that's one thing that's probably worth touching on. There are companies out there that will buy your used assets, but they are not in the recycling business. And I think that's a really important note, is that Sunnking can buy your used assets or consign them, but we also will responsibly handle the recycling. So if you have a company that calls you and says, hey, great news, I can pay you $50 per laptop, that's assuming they all work. What happens if you send them 10 that don't work? What happens to those laptops? What happens to that data if they're not certified and they're not a recycler? Are they wiping the data? Are you ensuring that that stuff isn't going overseas to China or India or the Middle East? So by working with a company that can not only purchase and or consign your assets, but also they can make sure that your data is securely handled and that all of the material is properly recycled in accordance with all state and federal laws, is incredibly important. So I would recommend that don't just work with somebody who says, oh, I want to buy your stuff. Ask questions, peel back the onion, and determine what they're going to do with the stuff that doesn't have resale value. And if they tell you that they're working with an R2 recycler, that sounds good, but the reality is if they're not R2 themselves, there is no mandate for them to actually send those units out to an R2 recycler. So don't be fooled by that. Really understand what they're doing with those assets that can't be resold.
All right, and with that, again, if anybody has any additional questions, send us an email, phone call, chat on our website. We will personally get back to you guys and hopefully help you get the best answer to it. That's going to wrap it up here. Hopefully, again, the people who stuck around with us throughout got some tangible information. Hopefully helps you, make it through this time a little easier with some better answers and a little more guidance, perhaps, on what to do with the stuff that you have you may or may not be using. So with that, I want to thank Adam again for his time, his hour here, sharing some of his knowledge, and I will pass it back along to Susan to close us out.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Adam. We really appreciate your time and insight on this topic. All this information will be available, like I mentioned, in a recording link that'll be sent to your email with all of their contact information, including their PowerPoint slides. Once again, thank you to Sunnking for being our webinar sponsor today. Special thanks to my teammate at the Chamber, Cassidy Franklin, for all her help behind the scenes. And on behalf of Bob Duffy and the entire Chamber team, thank you for joining us today. Please visit greaterrochesterchamber.com for more events, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, Susan.